Hey there, Power Platform enthusiasts. Welcome back to our channel. I'm Steph, and that's Superfloof, and if you're new here, we're all about empowering you to master the Power Platform. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, our channel is your go-to resource for all things Power Apps, Power Automate, and so much more. In today's video, we're deep diving into part 2 of our multiple-part series on building a fully functional intranet submission form using the latest modern controls in Power Apps. If you caught part 1, you already know that we've covered the essentials, like how to effectively use modern forms, navigate the SharePoint People Picker issue, and leverage rich text and modern tabs for a seamless user interface. In today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at the backbone of our app, SharePoint data structure, an absolutely crucial step to ensure that your app performs at its best. I'll show you how to set up custom tabs and containers so you can streamline your user interface and make the app more intuitive. But that's not all. I'll also walk you through how to enable live attachment previews within the app. No more downloading files just to see what's inside. Plus, we'll set up a notes section that not only captures approver comments, but appends these notes for security and historical tracking, ensuring you maintain a robust audit trail. If you're serious about building top-notch Power Apps, this video is packed with insights you won't want to miss. And don't forget, part 3 is just around the corner. We're going to tackle the gallery setups with custom filtering with a focus on delegation, ensuring your app can scale without a hitch. And here's the best part. By the end of this video, you're going to be fully prepared for our upcoming Power Automate section. That's going to be part 4, where we dive into a multi-stage approval and completion notification. This is where your submission form will really come to life. We're automating workflows to ensure everything runs smoothly from start to finish. So stick around, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any part of the series. Let's get started taking your Power Apps skills to the next level. Let's start with the finished product first. This gallery with the custom filters is going to be highlighted in part 3 of our series, but I wanted to give you a quick look at it. We can filter by different priorities. If we wanted to see high priorities, we could filter by statuses, all unique to your organization and your needs. You'll see here that we have an icon for attachments to indicate to the end users that we have something there. So let's go look at that. This is what we'll be covering today. We're going to leverage modern tabs right here to give us the 3 views that we want for this use case. We have the original submission details that we can't make any changes to. We can just view it. Then we have attachments that we can view things right in the app. And then we have the approval status. Here we can see the approval status that we're going to cover in part 4 of our series, dynamically capturing comments from the different sections or different approvers, but also giving us the ability to add notes here. As you can see, we have appended notes that allow us to do rich text, so we have a history and an audit trail of what has happened to the submission detail. Let's build this together. In this use case, we're in my dev tenant, and I chose to use SharePoint for my backend. You could leverage Dataverse for Teams, SQL, whatever data source you want, you could use here. I'm using SharePoint with dummy data. Never showing any client data is very important. So let's look at the settings here. This is a list, which allows us to have attachments. So we have all of the different columns. We have a single line of text. We have contributors and collaborators, which are those multi-choice people pickers that we dealt with in part 1 of our 4-part series. We have categories, types of content. If we look at that, that's a choice column. We have that set up statically. We could leverage a separate SharePoint list with constants, and I'm going to do that in a previous video. Let me know in the comments how soon you'd like to see that, because that's a fun one. You can leverage SharePoint lists for constants, and then within your data source, just have text. There are definite use case possibilities for that. Here we have mission blueprint for this use case. It's a single line of text or multi-line of text. This is the actual use case for this submission. We have departure date, a suggested date and time. We have status, single line of text. Location, let's look at status here really quick. Actually, this is a single line of text, but I have the default value set to submitted. The reason for that is as it goes through in part 4 of our approval process, I'm going to set this status dynamically within Power Automate and show it within PowerApps. So I want it to be a single line of text rather than a choice column. I found that end users really like to change statuses as things progress and as they see the possibilities within PowerApps. So leveraging single line of text for statuses can really make your life easier in the long run. Then we have some more multiple line of text. We have location section within the flight deck. That's the URL for where they want their information to be. So all of that is a SharePoint backend for this app. Again, you could use Dataverse, whatever other source you like. This is just for this use case. Here's where we left off the app in part 1 of the series. I'll put a link to that into the description below. We have only our new submission form. Now, I am a lazy IT person. I do not want to recreate the same form for an admin view and an end user view. So what I'm doing is if a user selects the new submission, they want to submit a new item, then we're setting a variable called var form mode to form mode new. That means that a submission form is automatically set to new. Now, if we look at the finished app, here's that same new submission, var form mode is being set to form mode new. And if we look down here in the gallery, that same var form mode is being set to view. Now that is because when we click on the individual item as an admin, I want to be able to see what was submitted, but not make any changes. Now, depending on who is looking at this gallery, we could have this gallery depending on the user rights. If it's the user that submitted the item and they click on this and the status is only in submitted, then it could be taking them into that form to make a change to it. Let's say they made a mistake and they want to update it. This gallery view would show them their submissions and they could go in and edit it. For this use case, I'm just treating the gallery like it's for admins. So we're setting that form to view, and we're setting these tabs off of that form mode. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to get into the filtering on the gallery. I can do that in another video. But let's add this tab list to our new form or our new app. So I'm going to take and copy all of this and go over to the new app. And we're going to go into new submission. That takes me to that same screen form. And this form here is now in a form mode of new. And we can see that here by clicking on default form mode. It's set to var form mode from the main screen. Now in this top container, which I'm going to rename container tabs because I want to annotate everything and make sure my coworkers don't hate me, I can now select the plus sign here, or I could go into insert up here. You get the same user interface. So I'm going to do tabs, and the input is TabList. So now we have just the basic item 1, item 2, item 3. Not what we want here. I'm going to take and copy and paste in my code. Now what this means is, and you'll see here that we're only seeing one item because the var form mode is new. So let's change that. So if var form mode equals new, then the only option in this tab I want to see is submission details. If it's not, I want to see everything. So let's go back to the main screen. I'm not going to create a gallery here. I'm just going to slap a button in here. And if this button is selected and we go to advanced and on select, I'm going to just set, and you see IntelliSense is helping me with my code, var form mode to form mode view. And then we're going to navigate to the next screen. It's going to be screen form. And as I'm typing, I'm just going to select cover and finish my code. So now let's just give this a button name, admin view. There we have it. It's a little small. Let's scroll down, make it a little bit larger right here. Let's make it 200. Now I'm going to hit admin view and it takes us to the screen, and this is the powerful thing about the new modern tabs. You see how it's giving me 3 ellipses here. The space that I gave the tab list isn't big enough for what we need. So let's fix that as well. I could just click and drag, and you see how as I do that it's automatically showing or hiding. Let's look at what this looks like. If I select the ellipsis, it's showing me our different options. That's why I'm absolutely loving using the new modern tabs, because we can use this for so many other things. You could have this in a gallery and only make it small enough to see the 3 ellipses and then give us a drop-down menu. It's fabulous. Give me just a sec to format this and I'll be right back. Okay, now let's click on one of these items. Nothing happens. Why is that? We have to tell PowerApps what we want to do. We want to show or hide different containers depending on what tab is selected. Let's go back and look at the finished app. And we can see here I have a container for the details, I have a container for attachments, and I have a container for approvals. And as I select these different containers, we're able to see the items within it. So if I click on container attachments and I go to the visible, if TabList selected .value is attachments, true or false. And for the approvals, same thing. If approval status is selected, then show it or hide it. This gives us one pane of glass, one location for all of our users. Let's create this in the new one. So I go into our main container and I'm going to insert a container. Now it's going to just pop it in down here at the bottom because it is just adding it for us. That's the nice thing about leveraging these main containers in the vertical, is that it's just going to pop everything one below the other. So this is going to be our attachments container. And I'm going to set its visible to be if, and let's use the IntelliSense, TabList2, it's different than the other one, dot. Now what am I doing? I'm selecting the value, if that equals, and then we're using text here, so attachments, if it's selected, then it's going to be true, it's going to be visible, or false. And we end out the code. Now if I select attachments, it pops it to the bottom. You'll see here though, we missed something, and that's the container form, the container details. I need to do the reverse logic of that. So I'm going to copy this, go to my container details, go to visible, and change that from true to not attachments to submission details. So now as I'm selecting through, I'm able to see all of my different containers and do things within them. Here we are in our working app. Before I can do anything with the attachments or the admin screen, we have to have a way of knowing which record we're working with. So here on the main screen, I'm just going to insert a vertical gallery for now. This is not going to be the final one. I'm going to tie it to our data source. Now you see it popped it right into the middle of everything. Not where we want it, not a problem. I'm going to cut it and I'm going to paste it into the main container. First rule of PowerApps, don't panic. You can always undo things. So now that we have tied this gallery to the items, we know that one of these 2 items has an attachment. What we need to do is select this record when a button gets clicked. So for this arrow button, we're going to change that and we're going to set a variable, another variable. Now, whatever vernacular you use, try to be consistent. Every app that I work on, I'm using var this item because it makes sense to me. So whenever I go into one of the apps I created 6 months or a year ago, I'm consistent with what I'm using. This works for me. We're going to set the variable to this item, and then we're going to navigate to the other form screen. And we're also going to set another variable. We're going to set var form mode, leveraging IntelliSense, to form mode view. So basically we're saying, okay, we're setting a variable to this item, we're going to navigate, and we're also going to set the form mode on that next screen to view so that when we go into it, we have all of our tabs. Now, you see here though, the form itself is in a view mode, but we need to tell it to pull the record. How do we do that? We select the form, and we can either go to advanced, and from here we can type item, and then here we can set var this item. That'll pull in all the information for this record. Now we're starting to build this out for long term. Now if we select attachments, how do we get the attachments for this record? Okay, I'm going to pull over my other app, the finished one, and I'm going to give Reza Durrani credit. I got the code for this from him. He got it from a blog post that no longer exists. So I will take the code here, go over it with you, and then I'll put it in the description so you don't have to type it in. So what we're doing is we have a horizontal gallery because I like the user interface of going sideways. If we had more items here, there would be a scroll bar at the bottom, which is really handy. Let's create this together. Within R, and I'm going to spot check myself, container attachments, I'm going to add a horizontal gallery. So if I start typing gallery, I can select a gallery or a blank. I'm going to select this one because it's going to give us some of the building blocks of what we want. Now, I don't want to tie it to the actual data source because that would give us something completely different. If I were to do that, this is what it gives us, right? It'll give us some information, but we want it to be specific to this record. So instead, we're going to change the items to var this item, but just the attachments. So this will go through, and if I expand this out, we're able to see the display name of the attachment and the ID of the attachment. We don't really need the ID, but what we are going to need is this item dot absolute URI. So if I make this a little bit bigger, we're able to actually get the URL of the image. Well, that doesn't help show it to us, but let's just copy this and we'll paste it right here. That takes us directly to the attachment within this list item. But this isn't what we want. What we want is just a preview, the first page. You saw how long this took to load. This is a pretty large PDF. It's 268 pages. We don't want to slow down our app by loading the whole thing. We only want to pull in a preview of the first page of this. Now from Reza and the other blog that no longer exists, we're going to change the image from this item.absolute URI to this bit of code. I'm going to make it a little bit larger here. And you see how these items automatically resize. That's because the X and Y are dynamic to the image. Again, Microsoft did the work of setting it up for me, so I'm happy with it. So this bit of code right here is unique to your environment. This is my dev tenant. Please don't hack me, but here you have it. This will be in the comments below in the description for you. And then we're adding this items, that absolute URI. We're getting a preview and we're giving it a resolution. You do not need this portion here. You could pull this out and you would get a lower resolution. Your app will load faster or not depending on what you have going on. Oops. You could have a resolution of various different levels. So there we have the horizontal gallery giving us a preview of the attachments for our end users so they know what has been attached and they can look at it really quick. If we play the app, we can see what's going on. Now this view isn't very pretty. Let's fix that really quick. We don't want it to be fill, we want it to fit. And then we could do more with the gallery setup. But that gives us the bones. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I will be monitoring those. Here we have the last tab for this use case, the approval status tab. We're leveraging a horizontal container so that the two sections that you see here stack next to each other really nicely. The left section is going to be filtering data from a form, showing us part 4 of this series. These are going to be the comments from the approval workflow. This will capture dynamically from Power Automate's approval process, HR comments, and the Oversight Committee comments dynamically, unchangeable, so that we don't have any possibility of shenanigans. On the right side, we're leveraging a patch function on a save button to take the notes and append them to text that was already in the SharePoint list. We are not leveraging append to text, we're doing instead a patch function. If we look at the list settings for this notes field, it's a multi-line of text without appending changes to existing text. We're working around that by leveraging a patch statement. Now let's look at the code together. We are taking and setting the var this item to this item on the button click, and we are going to the list for this item We are taking what is there currently in the bottom portion and we're appending to it. We're adding a now, which is today's date and time, a dash, the user that submitted the notes, and then everything from the rich text box. Then we are resetting the text box. And if there are errors, we're handling it. If there are no errors, we're handling it. And then we're setting the var item to blank. So let's try this really quick. I'm going to play the app. And you'll notice the button doesn't allow me to do anything until I start adding notes. Test note 4, and we're going to make note bold. And now as I hit save notes, we get a notification that it was submitted successfully. It takes us back to the main screen. If we go back into that item, here is our note added to that text column. Let's build this together. Back to our existing app. So within the approval status container, we're going to add in that horizontal container that you saw. And so it's going to be a horizontal container. And we want this to fill the space. So the X is going to be 0, the Y is going to be 0. The width is going to be parent.width. And the height is going to be parent.height. We have it filling the space. Now within here, we're going to add in 2 separate things. We're going to add in a form, and I could leverage the new form, but I'm just going to do the existing edit form, just a little easier. I am going to tie it to our data source and wait for that. Now here I want to edit the fields. I only want specific things. I could go through all of these items and hit deletes individually, or I can just come in and select them. I could also come in here, and now we have the option of selecting multiple items and doing it from there as well. Easy peasy. So we need to add in some things here. So I'm going to add in a field for the status, and I'm going to add in for HR comments and oversight committee comments. Wait for that to load. We still have 2 fields we don't need here. We don't need the priority. We don't need the notes. We also need to tell this, we do not want the default mode to be this. We want it to be var for mode. And we want the items to be this item. So var this item. Now we can see submitted, we can see oversight. We don't want this form to fill the entire space, however. So what we'll do is we'll add in the second container, insert container, and booyakasha, it automatically gives us the space that we're looking for here. Now, I could format this a little bit more. I'm not going to right now. Let me know in the comments if you want me to get into the details of how we would format this form. What I want to get into is this section of it. I'm going to rename this form to form admin. Approvals, sorry, form approvals. And this container to container notes. So first, let's add a button. And there's our button. And because it's a container, it'll allow me to format and put things where I need. For right now, I'm just going to plop it into the right. I'm going to add in a text label. And this is going to say add notes. And I want to make this bold. I'll get to the formatting here in a second. I'm going to insert a rich text box editor. Put that right here. Now I'm going to copy this. I'm going to label it. Copy and paste. Previous notes. We're going to change the text to previous notes. And then we're going to insert another text, but a text label again. I'm going to put it right here. And what this is going to be, it's not going to be text. It's going to be var this item dot notes. So this will show us what we have going on. Now, do you see what happened here? This is formatting the text to be HTML. This doesn't look right, does it? So we're going to delete that, and instead we're going to leverage HTML text, another type of text box. Same thing, I'm going to pop it down here, change this text to var this item dot notes. And if I make it large, there you can see how we start having everything filled out. This app currently isn't going to be mobile, but it's a good idea to make things within your form, especially when it's in a variable container like this, to make it work within the space it's given. So for this position, I want it to be a Y of 20. That is going to be hard coded, but the X, I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to move my mouse out of the way. We're going to do parent.width, and you'll see how it pops it off. We're going to subtract its self.width. That brings it back in, and then we're going to minus 20. Now I could minus 20, or I could self.y, so that way it's always where it should be. Now the notes field over here, I want it to be 20. Again, we're keeping a 20 padding, but the y, I could have it be 40, but I really want it to fit a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is have it be, grabbing my code here a little bit, the button, whoops, hold on a second. Button canvas 2, not helpful. Button patch, notes, it gives me more of what I want. I'm going to have this Y be the button Y. So now it's starting to line up a little bit, but we don't want that necessarily. So I'm going to be ×2, so it bumps it down just a little bit. Now here, for the rich text editor, I'm just going to call this new notes. You could have it be whatever you like. For the X, I'm going to reference this guy right here. Label notes, I'm just going to copy. The X is going to be that dot X. So everything, if I make a change and I want to move this over a little bit more, once I'm done here, everything will be the same, so it automatically moves it all at once, which I really find very helpful. The Y, I'm going to have it be label notes.y plus the height of it, so it bumps right up to it. And the width, I want it to be parent.width. You see how it bumps off the screen, minus self.x. Personally, I like to do this. I like to do it ×2. Now, if I was proper maths, you could do a parentheses here. You don't have to. Just depends on how you like to do your maths. Now, previous notes, label previous notes, we want that to reference new notes, so they always stick right next to each other. So, right underneath it, if we wanted to give it a little padding, we could. We could give it a little bit of 10. The X, I could reference that, but I'm going to make everything reference here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. There we go. Okay, so that guy is done. This one we want to do the same that we did here. Same width. So technically we could just leverage the rich text box, the new notes. And there you have it. So now what are we going to do on the button? We definitely don't want it to be called button. So let's save notes. We could now, with the new modern buttons, have a save at the front of it. We don't have enough room here, so I'm going to make that 150. I'm also going to set the display mode. Let me grab that really quick. Okay, the display mode for this button is set to display mode edit. What I'm going to do instead is this. Now I copied it from my other formula, so I obviously have to change that. There we go. So if this is blank, I don't want anything in here. Well, obviously it's not blank right now because the properties for the default text are enter some rich text here. Now we can only hit the save button if there's text in here. Now, if and when we hit the save button, what do we want to have happen? I'm going to click advanced. I'm going to click on select, and let me grab that code as well. And I will definitely put this in the comments below. So if you have any questions, let me know, and let's go over this together. So on select, let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Again, we have a problem here because this guy okay, so click Format Text. Perfect. So we are setting var this item to patch to our list, but what are we patching to it? We're patching this var this item, the notes column. So we're taking what was in there before. So this exists already. We're taking what's there and then we're appending to it. So we're saying put this in there and then at the bottom put in all the new stuff that we've added. Then we're going to reset the field, and if there are errors, we're going to notify that there's an error for 5,000 milliseconds. And if it's successful, we're also going to notify them of this. Then we're going to navigate to the main screen and we're going to clear out the variable. If you have any questions about that, let me know in the comments. Let's test it. I'm going to hit Save Notes. We see the marching ants. We get a success message, and there we have it. That ends part 2 of our 4-part series on creating this submission form. Part 3, we're going to cover the gallery and the filtering. Right now this list only has 2 items, but let's filter it by medium priority. And we're going to set up a reset button. We're also going to do sorting by dates, by categories, you know, all of these different things that could be valid for your use case. Let's take a quick peek at the code. We'll get into all of this in part 3. There's a lot going on. That's why it's going to be part 3. Stay tuned for this, as well as the filtering on the headers, because we have this going on as well, which is what makes the code pretty intense. That's why it's a part 3. Part 4 is going to be the approval process. We're going to leverage Power Automate for multi-stage approvals. Again, as you saw here, capturing those comments and any status changes within the app, one source of truth. Make sure you hit subscribe down below so you get notified when I release those next 2 videos. Thanks, everybody. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts, questions, and any topics you'd like us to cover in future videos. Sharing is caring, so don't forget to share this tutorial with your fellow Power Apps enthusiasts. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep rocking Power Apps like a true pro. See you in the next video.